for an evening themed The Making of a Strong Heart and Happy Mind. Thank you to the organizers for affording me this opportunity to serve as well as to learn. Occupationally and professionally, I am a medical specialist, a psychiatrist, who manages a public psychiatric hospital in Durban. I'm also an associate professor at the University of KwaZulu-Natal and the current president of the College of Psychiatrists of the Colleges of Medicine of South Africa. I also co-manage the Durban branch of the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, which is a mental health NGO that has been rendering mental health support to the community for over 28 years. So adopting a holistic approach to mental well-being is really something that's really close to my heart and that I'm passionate about, despite my professional background. And personally, like all of you, I am a fellow traveler on life's journey in search of peace, wholeness, healing, and growth. Mental health and bodily health are inextricably linked and interdependent. And spiritual health is foundational to both mental and physical health. So mental health is not only my business, it's also everybody's business. We are therefore fortunate and blessed to be in the expert company of our hostesses from the Brahma Kumari Organization of South Africa. And for those of you, once again, who are unfamiliar with the Brahma Kumari Organization, they are a worldwide spiritual movement dedicated to personal transformation and world renewal. Founded in India in 1937, the Brahma Kumaris has over 8,000 centers in over 130 countries on all continents and has had an extensive impact in many sectors as an international NGO of the United Nations, where they have been accredited with general consultative status with the Economic and Social Council. For the past 80 years, the Brahma Kumaris has been offering a simple and accessible education in universal principles and values to build inner strength and capacity. This body of knowledge is called Raja Yoga and is at the core of what they teach. Raja Yoga literally means the king of yoga practices. It is an ancient spiritual discipline and method of meditation that provides the knowledge and practice needed to strengthen ourselves from the inside out. It is the royal road to spiritual growth and holds the keys to coping with and transcending human suffering, be it physical, emotional, or mental. Adopting a spiritual approach, the organization offers free seminars, courses, workshops, and retreats on self-awareness and personal development, helping participants to develop coping strategies to promote and maintain their emotional and mental health. At the heart of the Brahma Kumari's teachings and practices is meditation. And you can find more information about the organization on their website. In essence, their valued motto is, when I change, the world will change. Contrary to what many of us believe, we want the world to change first. By helping individuals to change and transform, they are certainly contributing towards positively transforming the world, one person at a time. This evening's proceedings mark the launch of the Brahma Kumari's Compassion in Action workshop series. And a brief overview of this evening's program is as follows. We will first hear from our panel of mental health practitioners, their views and experience of spirituality in their therapeutic practices with their patients. This will be followed by our keynote address by our international guest, Sister Jayanti, and finally, Sister Usha will share details of the forthcoming Compassion in Action series. So you are probably wondering what a psychiatrist, an academic, and scientific researcher is doing on a spiritual platform. When I joined medical school several decades ago, and then later joined the psychiatric fraternity, spirituality and medicine were almost contradictory or mutually exclusive domains. Medicine was about science and the respected and only authority on health. Religion and spirituality were scoffed at, and trainees dared not express their personal beliefs in clinical corridors. Such was the ignorance about and mistrust of spirituality that as mental health professionals, we were strictly instructed not to discuss matters of religion and spirituality with our patients, whether we were psychiatrists or psychologists. Fortunately, over the last few decades, more light has entered medical corridors. And these are outdated figures, but are illustrative that almost 60% of British and 90% of American medical schools offer courses on spirituality. Psychiatric and psychological societies all over the world now have special interest groups dedicated to matters of spirituality and religion as they relate to mental well-being and the treatment of mental illnesses. There's also been an exponential increase in scientific research on spirituality and health, both mental and physical or bodily health. And not surprisingly, there is overwhelming positive scientific evidence supporting the salutary effects of spirituality on health. Specifically, the health benefits of yoga or hatha yoga and meditation and its Western adaptation of mindfulness are endorsed by one of the foremost medical schools in the world, Harvard Medical School in America. And they endorse this not just for the promotion of bodily, mental, and emotional health, but also as a complementary health resource in the treatment and management of a wide variety of medical, including psychiatric disorders. Ladies and gentlemen, these ancient health elixirs are now being practiced and prescribed by a small but growing number of healthcare practitioners. Time precludes us from sharing all the scientific evidence, which you are most welcome to do online searches for. We are currently recovering mentally, readjusting inwardly and outwardly, and recalibrating our inner and outer compasses after surviving the catastrophic events associated with the COVID pandemic. This was a watershed moment on the planet, a cosmic event that was not just a health, economic, or social crisis, but also a spiritual crossroads in our lives on this planet. COVID contributed to 7 million deaths and infected 700 million people. However, every living creature on our planet has been affected by the virus. And while the toll it has taken on mental well-being remains under-recognized and neglected, its effects will be felt for generations to come. The COVID pandemic was the cosmic wake-up call to humanity to make continuous and conscious investment in living healthily, to focus on finding meaning and a higher purpose in our human lives, to live eco-centric and not egocentric lives in order to promote the health of our planet. It is worth noting that you need not be religiously or spiritually inclined to benefit from the information and resources that you'll be hearing about this evening. All you need is an open mind and an open heart. It gives me great pleasure to welcome and introduce our distinguished panel of mental health care practitioners to share their views and experience of spirituality and mental health care as they daily deal with individuals who suffer from effects of trauma, stress, depression, anxiety, and substance dependence and abuse. These practitioners work at the coalface and know firsthand not only the suffering caused by mental illness and poor mental health, but also what treatments, interventions, and practices are helpful. So I invite each of our panelists to address us for about 5 minutes each, and they will share with us how spirituality is a supportive element of healing based on their experience. So it gives me great pleasure to call up first to the podium, Ms. Fatima Bibi Hussein, and who I know for many years working in the mental health field. And she's a senior management executive with a background of social science and psychology with extensive experience in the mental health nonprofit sector, initially directing and managing services for the Durban Mental Health Society, and then currently working at SANCA, the Durban Alcohol and Drug Rehabilitation Center. Ms. Hussein, thank you for joining us this evening and welcome to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, respected guests, Sister Jayanti, to all of you. My name is Fatima Hussein, and I am the director at SACNA Durban Alcohol and Drug Centers. I'm going to very briefly, our host for today has actually introduced me in terms of my background. I've been in the field for 32 years now. So I have an extensive background in terms of the mental health field, but also in terms of other fields of disability. But I am now presently in the field of addiction. And my focus for today is going to be in terms of spirituality and recovery in terms of the addiction specialist. I'm not sure if many people know about SANCA, but very briefly, SANCA stands for South African National Council, and our focus is in terms of addiction. So we're focusing specifically in terms of substance abuse, which is alcohol, drug dependency, gambling. So those are some of the addictions that we actually cover. We are based in Wars Road, which is in Beria, and we do have a rehab center there as well. But we render services across 16 magisterial districts in the eThekwini North, South, and the Ilembe districts. So that is basically what a very brief background in terms of the organization. My association with the Brahmakumari movement actually goes back about a year now, where we have actually partnered with them in terms of the spirituality aspects, which I'm going to share with you very quickly. You know, they always talk about you never underestimate the power to take your life in a new direction. Every moment is a fresh beginning. Life's not about expecting, hoping, and wishing. It's about doing, being, and becoming. If you want happiness for an hour, take a nap. If you want happiness for a day, go fishing. If you want happiness for a year, inherit a fortune. If you want happiness for a lifetime, help someone else. Happiness is not something that is achieved. It is a skill that's cultivated and practiced daily. Its mastery comes from serving others. When we talk about serving others, very briefly, ladies and gentlemen, I chose this profession because of my own personal experiences. And I wanted to give back to the community and to the people because I know of the social ills and what I experienced in my own personal life. When one talks about the benefits, I'm going to focus quickly on the benefits of spirituality in addiction recovery. When we talk about addiction, we find that addiction recovery is a time of change and restoration. While this often leads to positive growth, you will note, and I'm sure many of you have experienced this with family members, that it can be a very draining and overwhelming experience. And for this reason, many people lean on spirituality during addiction recovery. And for some people, spirituality recovery involves practicing religion, or it can also mean different things for different people where you're actually connecting with nature. We found in terms of the programs that we offer at our institution that spirituality plays a significant role in our 12-step recovery program, which is run by Alcoholics Anonymous. And I think a lot of you might be familiar with that. The central idea of this program is that a person's recovery can begin when they let go of a perceived sense of control over their life.
Each individual's perceptions are skewed and steer them towards self-destruction. During recovery, people in the 12-step program look beyond themselves and trust in the wisdom of a higher power for guidance. Spirituality has many benefits for a person's life, especially during the addiction recovery. Addiction can be crippling to a person's sense of value, purpose, and the connection to the world. When a person taps into spirituality, their focus turns away from their own worries and faces the world around them. Whilst this can be difficult, spirituality can be comforting and uplifting. Spirituality and addiction recovery are a national fit for both, for all of us. And we find that through this process, there's been a lot of healing from drug addiction can be a challenging process. Practicing spirituality can provide healing from past mistakes. Spiritual healing often involves forgiveness, reconnecting with others, and finding a sense of belonging. Ladies and gentlemen, we're practicing it at a practical level. We have the ladies from the Brahma Kumari movement within our organization that actually does the teachings in terms of spirituality. But in addition to that, we are also very diversified because of the different cultures that are within our centers. And there too, we have people that come through, and spirituality has worked greatly for our patients. The early stage of recovery are mentally and emotionally exhausting, and they acquire a lot of strength through their difficulties, but through their purpose and finding their connection in terms of spirituality. Connections are powerful during the addiction recovery, and support can make a huge difference for an individual. Addiction pushes people to isolate themselves and disconnect from others. Spirituality encourages connection with others to restore a sense of belonging. People can connect with a higher power with themselves, in others, in nature, or from a variety of other resources. Ladies and gentlemen, it is often said that we are not human beings having spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. That statement is so profound. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And as a social work practitioner, and as an addiction therapist and a counselor, this philosophy has found a new meaning for us within our centers and within our therapies. One cannot give what one does not have. Unless one is spiritual, it is difficult for you to touch the other person spiritually and contribute to his or her overall development and empowerment. Only the one that is healing from within can heal others. And spirituality helps us to be complete persons from within so that we could help others in need. I'm going to end now. I'm looking at the time frame. Viktor Frankl has said the spiritual dimension cannot be ignored, for it is what makes us human. The spiritual dimension can serve as a very, very critical link in our lives. Remember that we as human beings can be compared to a four-wheel vehicle. Each wheel represents an aspect of human nature. We have a physical wheel, we have an emotional wheel, we have an intellectual wheel, and a spiritual wheel. And when there is an imbalance in any one of these dimensions, you know exactly what that does to you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I find the practice of incorporating spirituality within our centers and the programs we offer extremely beneficial. I want to thank the Brahma Kumari movement for partnering with us and being part of our centers. because it has really made a difference to our patients and our clients in terms of their body, mind, and soul. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fatima, for sharing your experience with addiction. And as we all know, addictions in many forms, not just confined to substances, is a growing societal problem. And underlying it is a spiritual problem. Okay, no pun intended for those using spirits. It gives me great pleasure to now call upon Dr. Sibongile Bongi-Lushapu, who's a special psychiatrist like myself, but more importantly, she's a colleague and also a former student who's grown and blossomed in front of my eyes. So it's a particular honor to be sharing this evening with her. And she has vast experience in the mental health field. She's also based at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, which is a lecturer and researcher, and she also does private work in the city center here. So she will tell you a little bit more about her experience as a psychiatrist with spirituality. Thank you both. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. And thanks to Prof. Ramlal for the beautiful introduction. Prof. Ramlal was my teacher back in the 90s. And you will be very proud today listening to my speech, realizing that I've absorbed everything that you taught me. And I also want to thank Raksha, Dr. Raksha Balbadu, who I met only a few months ago, and not under very pleasant circumstances. Raksha, as we all know, is a palliative care doctor. So she's looking after my dad, who's battling cancer, terminal illness. So I'll leave it at that. So, and Raksha has been a very important part of my dad's healing. My dad is from the northern province, Limpopo, and I was amazed at how they connected on a spiritual level, even though they come from different backgrounds. So thank you, Raksha, for what you do. Then this, it's such an honor for me. I'm naive to this organization, but I did not hesitate when Raksha invited me because I felt I had some contribution to make. So I've worked with people with mental health problems since 1999. That's when I was doing my internship, and then I went on to community service, and that was in deep rural Limpopo. And it's almost a quarter of a century, to be fair. Yes, maybe it doesn't show, but I'm quite old. So as they say, like wine, I actually feel like I've gotten better at each of the time. I did my community service in a big psychiatric hospital in rural Limpopo. It was called Fortune. And back then, our training emphasized holistic care to treatment. So what that mostly referred to was the services that were available for people requiring social workers for placement, people who were homeless, for example, or whose families could not cope with them, rehabilitation for drug addictions and abuse. And part of our treatment also included trying to change our patients' thinking patterns and modeling the right behaviors, the so-called behavioral therapies. But there was very little emphasis on religion, culture, spirituality, and mindfulness. Some professionals actually think that talking about taking a spiritual history is potentially inclusive. They think that spiritual and religious concerns go beyond the job description of a psychiatrist and see prayer as a non-clinical activity that blurs boundaries and creates ambiguity. But spirituality and meaning in life are important pathways to well-being because the spiritual dimension provides a strong force that functions to bring order and vitality to both mind and body. In South Africa, religion and spirituality are rated highly in both happiness and meaningfulness. Research has consistently and empirically linked spirituality religion, and meaning in life to good health outcomes. And these are also my personal observations over the years. Perhaps it is time to move away from the old tendency to see cultural, religious, and spiritual experiences as pathology, and move towards an appreciation of how religion, spirituality, and mindfulness can be conducive to mental health and wellness. The Royal College of Psychiatrists, Spirituality and Psychiatry Special Interest Group, and many other similar groups across the globe hold the view that psychiatrists should respect their patients' religious and spiritual beliefs, and that these beliefs should be given thoughtful and serious consideration in the clinical setting. Spiritual and religious values should actually be counted as essential to good clinical practice, what we refer to as holistic care. The reality is that most of the healing happens outside the confines of the doctor's office. Because on average, patients spend only an hour with a psychiatrist or the psychologist. So in terms of mental wellness, we all have the responsibility to play an active role in the healing process. We need to be intentional about it by digging deep and finding meaning and purpose. It's more like an inside job. Even with physical illness, the patient is in charge of the healing process. The doctor just provides a roadmap of what needs to be done during the healing process. Much of the writing in medical anthropology emphasizes a meaning-centered approach, and this is central to the concept of recovery and wellness in mental health. For example, in psychiatry, it is not enough to ask about voices in a patient that is experiencing hallucinations. What is also important is how hearing voices influences their lives and how they make sense of the experience and how they can best cope with their lives, given the voices that they experience daily. Some patients are able to do this so well that we only use low doses of medication for symptom control. Therefore, every psychiatric or psychological assessment should not be a simple inventory or checklist of symptoms. It needs to be an inquiry into meaning, an approach that is strongly endorsed by the spirituality and psychiatry special interest groups. It is so important to understand the role that spirituality and religion play in people's lives, not simply the fact that such beliefs are held, but the ways in which individuals appeal to those beliefs when they are under stress. We also how the COVID-19 pandemic was quickly replaced by a mental health pandemic, which will stay with us for many years to come. The demand for mental health services went up dramatically in recent times. All of us faced possible morbidity and mortality during the COVID pandemic, except for children, of course. And to this day, I remain grateful that they were somehow spared from serious illness and mortality, making us acutely aware that the universe always has a way to deal with such circumstances. It was so adorable to watch how children quickly adopted to the new normal during the pandemic. Another indication that we all have the innate capacity for resilience and survival, and that maybe we should be teaching our children to be strong spiritually. I think during the pandemic, my colleagues and I published a paper that laid out all the mental health issues that emerged during the pandemic, including unresolved grief, post-traumatic stress, and panic disorders. So we saw a lot of patients suffering with those. And my understanding was that the coping mechanisms, such as cultural, spiritual, and religious activities that people were so accustomed to, were restricted during that time. The fact that we are here today in good health, in good spirits, means that somehow all of us found a way to deal with all those adversities. So let us all be encouraged to continue searching for meaning and purpose in life. I look forward to an informative talk by our honorable guest, Sister Jayanti, and I thank you all. Peace be with you.
Thank you very much, Bongi. And yeah, as I said, it's always a proud moment to see the next generation carry the flag. And I was not responsible for putting Bongi on this panel. All right, so the discipline of psychiatry and mental health prides itself on using a multidisciplinary team in its approach to mental health and mental illness management. And I'm very passionate about us working with multidisciplinary teams, although sadly in the public sector, due to staff shortages, our patients don't often have the luxury of being able to have the benefit of all of these multidisciplinary team members. And in the private sector, unfortunately, cost is a limiting factor. So healing is not healing and curing is not the exclusive domain of doctors, all right? As much as you have all been led to believe that doctors sit on the throne, far from it. Right? So I'm particularly happy that we have included psychology colleagues on this panel, and it's a pity that we didn't have the occupational therapists. And really it is my strong and firm belief that the team should also include our traditional healers who our patients consult in very frequently. And even though they won't share that with us, and I think that's a great loss to our health system that we do not include these traditional healers and other spiritual counselors. So our last speaker on the panel is Mrs. Christina Forbes. She's a counseling psychologist. She also is a yoga and mindfulness practitioner and sound therapist whose purpose is to facilitate holistic, sustainable therapeutic practices for the purpose of cultivating awareness, compassionate and collective well-being. And as Dr. Mashapu mentioned, that within each one of us, we have all the resources to heal. We need to activate those. And unfortunately, the approach with Western medicine is that, outside-in method that often suppresses and negates those inner inbuilt healing mechanisms, both from a physiological or a bodily perspective, as well as a psychological perspective. So our role as clinicians and therapists is really to facilitate the inborn natural healing processes. And firstly, our first injunction is do no harm. So welcome very much. Well, thank you for joining us, Mrs. Forbes, and I welcome you to the podium.
Good evening, everyone. Wonderful to see you all here. I hope you can hear me. So, thank you for all those beautifully heartfelt I will share with you how I came to be here, but I just want to say thank you for your heartfelt words. It's really wonderful for me to hear and to experience how this collective consciousness come together in the purpose of awareness, cultivating awareness in ourselves so that we can spread out to everyone that we need. So I was invited to speak to the importance of attention centering techniques and purposeful reflection from a psychological point of view as supportive strategies for the promotion of mental health. So the nature of the mind, which you are very familiar with, is to wonder, is to think, is to plan, is to is to problem solve, and all of those wonderful things. It can be a wonderful asset to us. However, it is very rarely in the present moment. It's often something stuck in the past or the future, and it's often thinking, it's planning, it's worrying, it's ruminating. And during our lifetime, due to our conditioning, our minds create a narrative which inform our perceptions and a lens through which we see our lives playing out in our everyday interactions and interactions. And when it is elsewhere, we miss the possibilities offered to us in this present moment, right in front of us, whatever is here right now. We're thinking about something else. We miss the smile on somebody's face, the laughter in the child, the beauty of the nature around us. And when this happens, it catapults us into a state of stress and of suffering, when we simply do not see the things that are right in front of our very eyes. Rather, we see things through the lenses, through what we think things are. And so, this cultivating mindfulness is something that I've been practicing and integrating into my personal practice and life. And it's a constant practice, a life practice. And so cultivating this kind presence, kind attention is imperative. And when we can cultivate self-awareness, we can offer true friendship towards ourselves, others, and all beings. It offers us the gift of possibility in each moment, the gift to start again, wherever we find ourselves to be. It is not about stopping thinking. This is, although we would love to be able to just shut off those ruminative and sometimes very challenging and destructive thoughts. This is very challenging. We can cultivate a new way of relating to the thinking, to the thoughts that come and go, in a way that does not keep us, that do not keep us in captive in the potential prison of the mind. So first we have to see those things, see things as they are, right in front of us in this moment. This is something that is a constant practice for me, for many. So I will speak to this from a personal reflection. As what I'm about to share, I feel was in some way a shared human experience. So I asked this question to myself whilst on a walk in nature, a place that grounds me and rejuvenates me and brings clarity. What could I possibly say in 5 minutes that will hopefully offer something to someone? The pause is a practice I come back to over and over again when I integrate into my work and my personal life, my everyday life. It is such a simple yet such a powerful practice in supporting the cultivation of building a resilient mind, body, and heart. Short embodied practices often is kind of one of my many mantras. So this is not to the exclusion of daily longer practices. So when I received this invitation to speak a few minutes to this really important time and topic, this happened. At very first and fleetingly, I felt a wide smile spread across my face and a deep sense of warmth and gratitude in my heart. It was such an honor and a privilege. And this experience didn't last for very long before I noticed the thought, well, why me? Who would want to listen to what I have to share? And so on. There's me. This is a very well-versed habitual narrative around anxiety and self-doubt regarding public speaking, expression, being heard. And this arose once again. And it's an old and familiar friend. And they came knocking loudly at the door. But that was okay. So in this moment of awareness, where I caught myself, I paused, invited attention to settle into the most prominent physical sensations in the body. And with kind curiosity asked, what is here right now? I stayed close to, I listened, sensing directly into the body, into the physical sensations, just as they were in the gym. So I noticed tightness in the chest, a flurry of movement in the belly, something we mostly familiar with, possibly different reasons. And I stayed here for a few moments, allowing sensations to be without changing them, something I'm well versed in, wanting to distract myself to change, feeling the urge to want to change something. And I felt it would be kind in that moment to invite a deep breath and an extra slow breath out to support healthy nervous system regulation to the ground. I paused again and I asked, what is here right now? I noticed that the tightness had dissipated somewhat and the butterflies, they were less flurried. So once more I paused and asked, what is needed in this moment to take care of myself? I listened. Another deep breath, nourishing breath, connecting in with the sensations of sound and the natural world around me, finding an anchor to healthy ground, leading back here to the present. The deep sense of gratitude in this opportunity to share, a clarity, a return to the new narrative that I've been cultivating, and the expansive potentiality of possibility of what would be an appropriate response for the next moment. To say yes, cultivating a kind, attentive presence to experience as it arises, just as it is within ourselves in these moments of vulnerability, gives rise to endless possibility and connection with the world around us, and of extending kindness to others. For me, this is compassion in action, the bedrock of sustainable change and cultivating resilience in the world we live in. So when I can learn to be present with myself and a safe other, with friendship, when I can be with myself in that place of vulnerability, where I feel seen, heard, and loved, I feel safe. When we have a sense of feeling heard and seeing, we feel safe. When we can feel safe, we can feel. When we can feel, we have the potential to heal ourselves. And the waves of this healing process has a potential to spread far and wide. I'm just aware of the time. I just wanted to thank you for your attention and presence. Just taking a moment to just take a deep, perhaps closing the eyes, if that's appropriate for you. Taking a deep collective breath. And a slow breath. And just checking in with yourselves right now. And with what is here in this moment. You know, opening of the eyes being closed as we prepare to enter into the next moments. Thank you. Give this to you. It really
cast a spell over the audience and really prepare them for the highlight of this evening. And I really appreciate you emphasizing the importance of being kind to oneself, of self-compassion, and of self-love, which are really foundational to spiritual work, spiritual growth, and to kindness in the world. So it starts with each one of us. So earlier, my colleague Fatima quoted the French priest, scientist, and philosopher Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. He said, "We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience." You see, great minds think alike. So each one of us present here today are all at various stages of development in terms of the permutations of human spiritual identity awareness. And wherever you are on this human spiritual consciousness spectrum, and even if you do not identify yourself as a spiritual being, the beauty of meditative practices is that they can still be practiced and benefited from. Benefits are independent of your religious or spiritual belief or affiliation. And it is also possible to engage fully in our human responsibilities while still honoring our spiritual identity and mission. And as you will see from the sterling work of the Brahma Kumaris and other spiritual organizations, spirituality is an integral part of and not apart from human life, the so-called mundane human business that we go about daily. Really, the art and the secret is how to integrate those two and live harmoniously with those two identities. There is a spiritual law that states, as on the outside, so on the inside. And in the aftermath of the pandemic, South Africa is experiencing its worst electricity or energy crisis. And load shedding has plunged our outer worlds in darkness. And I often reflect that this perhaps is an urgent message from above, that it is time to ignite the eternal inner light. It is therefore not coincidence, but perhaps serendipity that we have in our midst this evening an envoy of light and wisdom. And it is an honor to lovingly welcome our dear Sister Jayanti to Durban and to the podium. For those of you who don't know Sister Jayanti, I'll share a little bit of information about her. Sister Jayanti is the additional administrative head of the Brahma Kumaris, the director of the Brahma Kumaris for Europe and Middle East, and a respected public speaker on diverse platforms, addressing topics ranging from environmental issues and women's upliftment to interreligious dialogues of health and well-being. For the past 50 years, Sister Jayanti has worked tirelessly to promote positive human spiritual values to all sectors of society. Her wise and compassionate insights shine a light of clarity and relevance on the complex issues of today. And she has touched and inspired millions of people throughout the world. Sister Jayanti will now address us on the spiritual resources that we all have latent within us and that are accessible to every individual, and how these promote happy hearts and peaceful minds. Sister Jayanti, it's an honor for us to have you in our presence, and I thank you and welcome you. from Jayanti.
A meeting of peace in my sister and my brothers, and a very deep heartfelt thanks to Professor Anna and the experts which had the experiences that are moving over here tonight. Yes, it's so important that research and statistics and science and medicine all come together, because we're at a very special moment in history. I went to New World a few days ago and I came across it. They told me it was the New World from 2023, and that was Corona crisis. Is that right? The darkness that Professor Lamar talked about, it's not just here in South Africa, but it's a worldwide phenomenon. But tonight is a moment of hope for the future, because the different disciplines come together and the simplicity in moving forward. And I see that this is the image we can create a better life for all, a better world for all. I just have to comment on one thing, because I agree with everything that was gathered in this platform earlier, which is one additional piece of history information. The Royal College of Psychiatrists held a meeting at our Oxford retreat place many years ago, and they were looking for spirituality and how spirituality actually can help mental well-being. And so within that gathering, it was a very rich exchange, and it was at the end of that they came up with a proposal that there should be a special interest group specifically focused on spirituality. So our home in Oxford was the birthplace, at least for the UK Royal College of Psychiatrists. So that the membership level is interesting. But yes, we see that there is more and more support for spirituality. I just one more aspect before moving to the spiritual dimension. But over the last 30 years or so, we've been hearing about positive psychology. And prior to that, I hadn't come across the term. And I happened to be sharing a platform with a woman who at that moment was the recipient of the Templeton Prize for Positive Psychology. And she was sharing that there were so many different methods to be able to experience temporary well-being. But most of them were temporary. But also, if you continued to use them, there would be a peak moment. And after that, if you continue to use, there would be a decline in the positive experience that people are having. So, for example, chocolate. I don't know how many people like chocolate. Many people do. And it has ingredients that create a feeling of well-being temporarily. And so you eat out of the bar, if you carry on eating, again. Scientific evidence for everything now, and we have it. I also was interested to ask her, how come we never heard about positive psychology earlier? And she said, I was talking through the 20th century, so she was talking about the 19th century. And she said that in the 19th century, we didn't have the instruments to be able to measure how suffering feelings are positive. For example, if you want to measure emotions such as anger, it's easy because the negative emotions come like a sledgehammer. And you can measure them because they're so strong, but also they have a long-term impact. Once you can measure things even after that initial experience, the body is still coming back to a state of relative comfort after the impact. But positive feelings are very subtle and they don't last for long. They come and they go. One moment you're feeling happy, unless you're very aware, as was pointed out, you continue to sustain that consciously in yourself, but it doesn't clear. But they come very quickly and disappear very quickly and very subtle. And so it is only towards the end of the 20th century that we are actually able to create the instruments that could measure all of these experiences. And he said another interesting thing, that not only is it true that with meditation, any form of meditation, the experience just continues to grow and develop in a positive way further and further. But the impact of it, even if you stop meditating, the impact of it continues for quite a while. And so we have a lot of evidence that spirituality and meditation are really the things we need to be able to cope with the permanent crisis that the world is going through in the 21st century. And so what is it that spirituality is actually teaching? From my own practical experience, when I came to meditation, I was 19. And it was such a powerful experience for me that I decided that this was to be my life for the future. And yes, it's true that 99% of the people who come to us actually take meditation and integrate it into their lives and continue with their life at home, at work, whatever it is they're engaged in. And again, the positive psychology results with it because of the enhancement of positive feelings within an individual, whether it's love or truth or peace or compassion or joy, all of these qualities and many, many more. The human being is more able to manage their own physical health much better, be able to manage their mental health much better, their emotional, but also in terms of relationships, being able to serve within the relationship, actually being those who are giving to others, and then further, they become contributors in some way to the society in which they live. And so on all levels, meditation, increasing those positive qualities of experience, meant that there is generally a stage of positive development within the individual. And so you can see that it's definitely not just something I do for me alone, but it's also a very powerful contribution to the world in so many different ways. Many things to share, but one particular aspect about the self, and I feel that the subject of identity, and we've been hearing this word identity crisis for quite a while. So the subject of identity is absolutely critical in the whole area of whatever it is we're doing. This is why, connected with the UN, we get involved in all the different areas that Professor Ramlal was outlining at the start when she was introducing the Brahmakumaris, because knowing myself and understanding how to be able to sustain myself and the values that I have is absolutely at the heart of everything. And when I mention some of those qualities that are enhanced through positive psychology, you'll be interested to see the connection. When I started to understand about the self, the inner being, I heard that the qualities of this inner being, and I'll use the word soul. The inner being is the soul, the being that I am, and the beautiful quote that we heard a couple of times from Tierhard Shada. So I would say that that inner being is Atma, soul. And I asked the question, well, what is a soul made up of? And I was told the soul is a being of energy, a luminous being that sits in the center of the forehead. But what is it made up of? And I heard the ingredients that make the soul are peace and love and truth and joy and purity. And these were the positive attributes that I heard were enhanced by positive psychology. Now, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a medical person, but from a spiritual perspective, I know for a fact that what's happened is that we identify with our external form and we see the problems that this has caused everywhere in the world and in this country too, whether it's color, race, gender, religion, age even. This creates so much conflict and division within our world. And yet, in fact, spirituality teaches a very simple method to go beyond all of this. Instead of looking at the external form, can I see you as that living being that shines just here in the center of the forehead? And if I can see you in that consciousness, there's an immediate connection and rapport rather than a wall that can divide us. And the more I understand myself, the more I can understand you. And if I don't understand myself, what hope is there in the world that you'll be able to understand me, or that I will be able to understand you? And so spirituality says, remember, you're the spirit first and foremost. And yes, you're very human, but the human is the physiology, and the human being, the being, is spirit, the soul. And in this awareness of the being that I am, I connect with the ingredients that I'm made up of. The peace, Om Shanti, Om, I am, Shanti, peace. So I connect first and foremost with peace. And just see for yourself the difference that that makes. When my mind is restless, when my mind is rushing around here and there, and it's becoming a tornado. And the difference in the centering, the focusing within, and then remembering that pause, I am the being of light. My thoughts become calm and measured. My breath becomes deeper and stronger. My body begins to relax. My shoulders lose their tension. There's a huge impact in the experience of Om Shanti. And if you carry one word away with you tonight, let it be the word peace or Om Shanti. Om Shanti is magical. It really is. Say Om Shanti to yourself at any moment, and it will have an instant impact. Feel it. And when I forget this inner being, what happens is that I'm looking for peace outside. And maybe I go away to a wonderful beach, and then I hear somebody put on their radio, and it's loud and it's disruptive, and my peace is gone. Or I'll go away on a holiday and I come back more stressed than I went away because I can't control situations around me and all sorts of things begin to happen. We look for peace everywhere, except in the place where it actually exists, and that is within ourselves. And so going on an inner journey and coming to that awareness of who I am, and within a moment, I can find peace. But the beautiful thing is that peace opens a door, and peace then is able to give me an insight into another quality, another treasure that I carry within myself, and that is love. And another one, happiness. We ran a survey way back in the early 90s. It started 1988 and it carried on till 92. And it became the largest survey by an NGO because we reached 128 countries, which had a population of over 1 million at that time. The world map looked a little bit different to what it is today. And we asked people, how do you see your better world? How do you see relationships in that better world? How do you see yourself in that better world? And it took us quite a while to put together, and we had people from all the different regions of the world spend 3 months doing this, so that whatever messages had come through from people in whichever form, we were understanding the spirit behind the letter rather than just the words. So it would be people who were understanding the local culture and so on. And what came out from all of this was the word values, love and truth, responsibility, honesty, sincerity, cooperation, all of these things, values. And so if I want to see a better self, I want to see values. If I want to see a better relationship, I want values. If I want to see a better world, I want values. That was very interesting for us because we thought that people would come up with amazing research and creation of designs and things for all sorts of things, but it didn't work like that. They touched the core of humanity, the values that everybody carries. And these are the qualities of the human spirit. I've mentioned 5, but these are like your basic colors. You've got 4 basic colors, and then if you mix and match, you get the whole rainbow spectrum of all the variety of colors. And so these 5 qualities of the human spirit, as you mix and match them, they come together and you have, how many values would you say? 99 different values, 100 values, however many. But you'll find that it's with a combination of these 5. And so knowing myself means going down to my own essential goodness. Every human being has goodness. We begin our journey with goodness. And when we forget our identity, that's when we have low self-esteem. I happened to get involved with another project at some point in which some universities came together to look at the subject of self-esteem. And of course, again, connected with identity crisis, self-esteem, respect for the self. These things were all totally related. And they discovered, this was not from a commercial project, this was, we were linked in for another reason, but 3 universities worked together to look at this. And what they found were that there were 3 factors for young people that either supported self-esteem or lowered self-esteem. And the first one was a question of parental care and upbringing and the love, which is as you would expect. And the second one was to what extent the family in which they grew up had some type of faith. It didn't matter what faith, but some aspect of faith. And the third one was a family where there was not so much addictive behavior. Again, when you think back, it makes total sense. It's common sense to think about these things, but science tells us you need the research. And so they did the research and they got these results. So we've grown up in a world in which there's many problems, but I think the basic factor is that we've forgotten ourselves. And so we've forgotten the human spiritual values that we need to be able to live our life as wonderful beings as we are, to be able to work and serve together and create a world that has justice and peace and harmony. And coming back to this, sounds very simplistic, but I believe it's absolutely the only way. And that is, we have to come back to a sense of the identity of the inner being, spirituality. And so the first step to be able to know who I am and to be able to then live with those values. And of course, from a spiritual perspective, I would also add that when there is cohesion between the inner core values of the human spirit and the life that we lead, when both of these align together, then you can hold your head up high in dignity. There's a lovely song, "No one can take my dignity away from me." I think it's by, I forgot. It was a song I just heard recently again. I think it's Whitney Houston. I think that's the one. And I think it's the title of the song is "The Greatest Love I've Ever Known." And so the greatest love I've ever known, how to be able to love myself. And when I have that, then I'm able to experience that inner dignity. And nobody can touch that. Nobody can take that away from me. The journey within is a beautiful one. There are challenges because I see not just that original goodness, but I also see the mistakes I've made along the way. And just as when I first get to know myself, and I gradually develop respect for myself, and even then later love myself, and whatever it is I'm feeling within is what I'll express outside. If I lack self-respect, I do not know how to treat other beings with respect. When I respect myself, then every individual I'll be able to treat with respect, but even I'll be able to treat the animal kingdom with respect, with non-violence. I'll be able to treat nature with respect. You're beginning to see how all the different crises that we have, including the ecological crisis, actually started way inside. It's not a crisis out there, it started in here. And you can see the repercussions of all of that in everything that's going on today. Definitely not simplistic, very profound, and check it out and you'll see that it's absolutely true. That's the first and most important part. How many of you ever met Daddy Jayanti? Some, I thought more. Some are shy, because I know that some of you did meet and you're not putting up your hands. But she came to South Africa several times and she loved Durban, she loved the ocean, and she passed away right at the beginning of COVID in March 2020 at the age of 104. and she lived to that age and was serving until the last month. Her life was service and the blessings she was receiving as a result of that service. Why I remember her now is because she would say Om Shanti, and she started to say Om Shanti 3 times. And the first Om Shanti was, who am I? Know myself. The second Om Shanti was, who do I belong to? And the third Om Shanti is, what do I need to do now? Basically, karma philosophy. And the fourth one, she didn't use 4 Om Shantis, but I also want to add a fourth aspect of spirituality, and that is time. What is this transition period that we're now going through? Come to that in a few minutes. I took a long time explaining this first part because I do see that this is the foundation. And as you rightly said, whether you believe, you don't believe, you have a religious tradition or you don't, you can still meditate. And just thinking about that inner being and the qualities of the self and connecting with those qualities makes such a vast difference in everyone's awareness and well-being on every level. The second aspect, the aspect of who I belong to. And I'd like to suggest that we have many, many relationships, but in every relationship there's a give and take. It's an exchange, which is as it should be. But there's one relationship in which we simply take, and that is the connection with the divine, the connection with the source, whatever name you use, whatever culture you belong to. But my connection with the source, the divine, means that I get that additional power when I recognize my own weaknesses. That realization can be devastating because at least now I'm recognizing what I'm dealing with, whether it's my attachments or my ego or whatever it is. And I think we all have a bit of addiction. And we might not have substance addictions, but we're addicted either to ego or to anger or to greed or attachment, something. So we all have to go through the recovery process. And meditation in which I'm connecting with the divine means I'm able to draw that power within myself and then move on further. I learn to forgive myself, I learn to change myself, have the power to be able to change and go further. The third aspect, the whole subject of give and take. Can I learn to be able to take from above and share on a horizontal level? It's possible. If I'm getting into a relationship in which I'm needy, I'm probably going to be disappointed because if there's 1 plus 1, you get 2. But if you've got half and half, you multiply half and half, what do you get? You get a quarter. We deplete each other. We don't support each other in the way it's needed. But if I can connect with one, draw what I need from above, then I can be one who can give, whether it's my time, my attention, a smile, a kind word. It's not a question of giving money necessarily. Maybe that's a need, that's another story. But there's something that I have that I can give and share. And that will definitely bring me the happiness that you were quoting earlier. And so karma philosophy says, action brings reaction. It brings equal and opposite reaction. As you sow, so shall you reap. It's a concept that's there in all traditions. And so this idea that if I can give, I'm going to receive happiness in return. But I'm not giving because I want that from you, but I'm giving because I've received so much that there's an abundance that I can share. And the fourth aspect that I want to touch upon again, although it's a period of great darkness in a way, but I also see great hope and the light shining that's going to bring a world of light a day. Nothing lasts forever. And so even though we've been going through a period of darkness for quite a while now it's extreme, but it's been going on for quite a while. This dark night has to give way and the day has to come. It is beyond question. It is a certainty. Just as externally, night finishes and the day begins. There's no question about it. In the same way, the circle of time in the eternal sense, in the bigger picture, is that things move and we're moving to a period of light. The very fact that we're looking at this subject from a holistic perspective is telling me that there's light entering this world of ours through the light that's coming from within our hearts. So many different things. We are now more aware of what we're doing to the planet. Some people are, not everyone. Needs a bit more light, a bit more illumination. It's happening. So I'm seeing that more and more people are recognizing the value of vegetarian diet, not just in terms of a spiritual discipline, but in terms of health, in terms of ecology. So big shifts have happened in the last decade even, and things are speeding up. Changes are happening faster and faster. And yes, there's a descending energy, but there's also an ascending energy. And if I choose to be part of that ascending energy, I'm going to be contributing towards moving the planet and humanity towards the day. So the fact that it's a cold, windy, wet evening, and you've taken the time to come here, that again is part of the illumination that's coming. And so thank you to our panel, and especially to our host, and thank you to all of you. Let's have just a couple of minutes in which we go inside on this inner journey. Meditation doesn't mean silence, in the sense that stop thoughts is very difficult. It's almost impossible. But what we can do is channel our thoughts in a specific direction. So let's try this experiment together. And keeping both feet on the ground means the body is more balanced and more relaxed, and the mind can be more free. I'll speak out a few thoughts as I reflect and invite you to follow those ideas. Sitting quietly, reflecting on the things I've been hearing about. I experiment with this concept. The inner being, the light that shines in the center of the forehead. I visualize the light that I am. And I go deeper and deeper inside. As deep as I can go to the core of my being. And deep inside, there is peace. This is the sacred space within me. I hold the thought of peace in my mind. I hold the feeling of peace. And my heart becomes strong with the awareness and feeling of peace. And the mind becomes happy. And in this awareness of peace, I feel the sacred presence of the divine. And from the source of peace, of love, of truth, I fill myself with these qualities. And these qualities reach not only I, the soul, but they reach out beyond the walls of this room, into the city, and beyond the ocean, out into the world. I keep the awareness of who I am and who I belong to, and what I need to do now. I come back to the awareness of the physical dimension, this room, and what I need to do is to share the goodness that is there within. Om Shanti.
I really do not want to disturb the peace that has been created by beloved Sister Jayanti. So I'm not going to say much, and I'm sure you understand why. Sister Jayanti delivered a discourse. She shared knowledge with us. She shared her wisdom with us. But most importantly, she has shared her energy with us. And it's tangible. And I want you to just hold on to that and take that back with you when you leave. I just want to firstly just say thank you. They're two very small words, but they're all powerful. And I want to leave it at that. And I'm sure you understand why. I would just like to pose two questions to you. One of the questions I asked all of my patients recently is rate your degree of self-love on a scale of 1 to 10. And the majority of patients fail the test. Their score is often less than 5 out of 10. It's not just patients, it's people in my everyday life as well. And I really find that that is something that we really struggle with. And I would really like your words of wisdom in terms of simple, practical exercises that we can engage in that can help us to increase our self-love.
Thank you for the question, a very important one. if each morning I spend a few moments in silence and look at my own inner goodness and identify what are my special qualities. Simple things like maybe I'm punctual, maybe I'm not, but maybe I am. Maybe I have patience. Maybe I'm light and easy. Whatever it is, just identify one or two questions for yourself. What are my specialities? And as you remind yourself of those specialities, you use them more, and the speciality continues to grow more and more powerful. And the second thing is, at the end of the day, do an audit for the self. And don't ask yourself what mistakes did I make. Ask yourself what was good today. And secondly, what did I learn today? If I made a mistake, okay, it happened, but did I learn something from that? And in this way, you'll be able to treat yourself with greater compassion and love, and your self-love will grow.
Very much for that. And I think you flowed very nicely into my next question. Our former president, the late Dr. Nelson Mandela, is really the epitome of forgiveness. And most of us wouldn't be here today if he didn't embrace that spirit of forgiveness. But one of the other observations about human nature is our inability to forgive ourselves first and foremost. And obviously that translates in our inability to forgive the person next to us. So how can we cultivate a sense of forgiveness for our own shortcomings, trespasses, faults, etc.?
The first step is just asking, did I learn something from this? I remember going through a period in which I had anger. Until age 23, I didn't know what is anger. There was no need to get angry in a sense. But after that, I discovered slowly, strongly, that I had anger. And at one point, I got very angry with somebody. And I was very upset with myself. And I had to ask, what did I learn from that particular situation? And when I started that process of inquiry and decided that I'm not going to allow that to happen again, I'm going to make sure that the circumstances that led to that don't rattle me, and the change began. And I learned to forgive myself. And so things happen to teach humility. Things happen to help you move forward. And if you can do that, then yes, you can forgive yourself.
We now move to the next item on our program. And as I mentioned earlier, this function is really to mark the launch of a series of workshops that will commence in February, I believe, titled Compassion in Action. And I would really take great pleasure in inviting to the podium Sister Usha, who's one of the Brahmakumaris based in Durban. And she's going to tell us more about this program. And we look forward to hearing about this. And I'm sure all of you are also, because you certainly want to maintain and preserve what you have all experienced here today. Sister Usha.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So what we really like to do in terms of this going forward is that sometimes when we come to a lecture or talk, we're very inspired, but when we go home and try and do it ourselves, there's like a little bit of we get stuck. So our aim really is to do a day retreat. And in this day retreat, the three aspects that Sister Jayanti mentioned, to really create a deep understanding about who I am and become more in touch with myself, and let's have a big tick in the loving the self. But then the important thing is also when we look at our environment and our circumstances, so to just really put in context where we come from. And that's also a very important element for us to have that perspective. Because what happens is that each one of us have our own beautiful story. And it's nice to actually live this life with that context. We have all a very beautiful part to play. And so when we can know that, when Sister Jayanti mentioned time, I thought she would give us a little bit more about that. But it's nice to see really what it is that we can do. And then the most important thing is that we are not alone. We have a very powerful connection, and that's with the divine. And so even to forge that relationship, to actually make ourselves connect to that source and become independent, it's very essential for us to realize that everything that we need actually lies inside of ourselves. And I think you very beautifully said that we really just facilitate a space for you to go inside and bring these treasures out. So the tree is meant to happen from about 9:30 on a Saturday till about 2, creating a very beautiful environment for you to actually relax, go inward. There's lovely tools, even the spaces in our centers really facilitate a process of just stepping inward. And so that's our offer. We know that our colleagues here, I'm saying colleagues because I think now we're on the same platform, I really emphasize that the help that they're giving us is beautiful and we must use that help. But this is like a sustaining energy. The spirituality is the sustaining energy. And so this is really what we would like to offer each one of you. Sometimes it can happen that you have an organization and you'd like us to come there and work with your group. So whatever it is that you feel we can do, let's work together. But let us not actually feel alone, that we're out there having to fend for ourselves. I think in many ways, each one of us can actually see that we have very many similar things in different ways, but we actually have similar things. And I must say, it's really important for us before we leave here to actually make some kind of concrete plan. So I'm going to invite Sister Ruba, and she's going to just take us through a little process where we're going to do our affirmation. So Sister Ruba is a teacher of Raj Yoga meditation, and she's based at our Amundsen Jyoti branch.
Om Shanti. Good evening, my brothers and sisters. Good evening, Jayanti. Welcome. So, I was just sharing with Sister Veni, I think Brahma Kumaris, as they get older, they get shorter. So, Rakshit, come stand next to me with proof point. So just to, wow. So just following from what Sister Usha shared with respect to the program that we're going to be hosting, Compassion in Action. So I believe today we took the first step in this journey of exploring these aspects in more detail. And I definitely feel that even though we just took a small step today, we've taken a lot. And I think each one of you, if we spend a moment and reflect on all the teachings that our wonderful teachers have shared with us this evening, we have taken a lot. And I just want to share one more thing that the Brahma Kumaris say very frequently, and that is, where my thoughts go, energy flows. Where energy flows, life grows. And so, keeping in mind all things that we have learned this evening, we want to share that energy. And you would have noticed that we've handed to each one of you a heart. Okay. And obviously, as many of you said, oh, what am I going to do with this? I'm going to share with you the process that we're going to follow. So sitting very quietly, focusing on all that we have learned this evening, I asked myself this question: what is needed in this moment to be loving, kind, and compassionate to myself? So spend a moment, reflect on that. Okay. And now I invite, if you have a pen, please, if you could capture your thought on that heart. If you don't have pens, we've got a lot of pens out there. Just put your hand up and my sisters will share pens with you. If you can record your thought on this compassion and love and kindness for yourself, what you're committing to yourself. And then I will remind you of one other aspect, and that is when I change, the world changes. And so when I write this down, I offer it not only to myself, but to the world. So I help my brothers and sisters who did not come here this evening, but I share this love with each one of them across the world. And this evening, as you leave, you will see in the front of the hall a beautiful frame depicting that universal divine energy. And as you leave, I invite you to leave your heart on that energy with the intention, with the thought that the power of your gracious thoughts will flow out into the world. So I thank you. Thank you, Sister Ruba. So I have the beautiful task of passing a vote of thanks. And to my beautiful sisters, I think it is really such a pleasure to and rewarding to listen to that when you come from such an academic, scientific background, and then you yourself can bring about the power of spirituality, I think it brings hope to everyone. Because I know that in the professional world, people will come to you for the kind of help they need. And you become the ones to guide them to the spiritualities, becomes our new gurus, right? So thank you to each one of you for actually sharing your perspective. It was really beautiful. I actually learned a lot. I'm just seeing how the different things that you do practically as well. And listening to your personal experience, I think, was very important as well, because sometimes it's just the head thing. So from each one of you, what I took, and I think everyone, is that you really are very beautiful individuals, not only sharing your wisdom, but your beauty as a being. So thank you so much. Definitely our special flower, our angel. I'd like to just say something because I've known Sister Jayanti for almost 36 years or more, close to that time. I was like a feisty young girl. And what I found so beautiful is that when I know her, we used to just say Sister Jayanti and look up to her and say, one day we're going to grow old like her. But we've always had seniors like Daddy Jayanti, they were like our spiritual resource and mentors. And today I stand here and I'm really moved because she has actually stepped into the role of what our daddies were for us
because she's now our additional administrative head. And in that period, what I feel that's so beautiful, she even mentioned today about her own experience of anger. And it's nice for individuals to know that on this spiritual journey, you don't come perfect onto the path. You come onto the path to let go. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So today she sits here as our spiritual resource, as our daddy. But in a very practical way, she's sharing how she has transformed. And so that's a gift I feel for each one of us. Always, when I think about thank you, it's not the word thank you, but what we take from this and change our lives is the greatest thanks that we can give. So I think what's this Jayanti, our words are not what she wants to hear, but that if what was shared with her makes a difference to your lives and changes it, it's the best thank you that we can give to Sister Jayanti. So I actually urge each one of you to take really seriously what you wrote on those cards and bring it into your lives. And that's how we can make our community a better place. But from our side, physically, I'd like to call my sisters forward and accept a little gift from Sister Jayanti. Thank you. And I must say that it's good that you didn't disappoint us, because in the rain, we tend to have the culture of staying at home. So a really, really good thank you to each one of you for coming together. This was our first in-person program after COVID. So that really was a powerful presence that all of you created. I'd like to thank our sound. Thank you so much. And all the hands that made this event possible. A very, very big thank you. And we have a little thank you for each one of you as well. So as you go out of the gate, you will get your little blessing and your little sweet as well. And then please leave behind your heart. And let's use that to change the world. Thank you. Go in peace, travel safely. Om Shanti. Just wanted to share one more thing. If you please make sure you've registered, because we will send to you the online follow-up program as well. And otherwise, you can also call us. If you need it to happen in other areas, please contact us. But if you've registered, you will get the follow-up leaflet on your phones. Thank you.
Sisters,